It's hot, it's mucky, it's buggy, but if you're willing to put that aside, you can still catch quality fish all summer. And I really like the summer.
Hello and welcome to the Fat Dad Fishing Show. My name's Rich Natoli, your regular host. And tonight we're going to be talking with Chris Matuson, and we're going to do something a little bit different. This is the time of year where literally everybody's on vacation. There's no one around. This is going to be mainly a podcast episode because the chats get light once we hit the heat of July and August. But people being on vacation means that we're fishing a lot more. So we need to make some adjustments. We're going to keep this theme going about fishing in the hot weather. And we're also going to dip into a little bit of freshwater too. Part of it comes because, look, we just can't always get out on the water down at the shore. Can't always hit the salt. But the other thing is there's a huge amount of crossover between the two. And I threw up a poll on YouTube last week and asking, do you want me to start putting some freshwater stuff in here? And the poll, it was interesting. The poll was about 80% just saltwater, 20% put in freshwater, but then literally 100% of the emails that came in requested both. So we're going to be dipping into freshwater from time to time. It is not it's not going to supplant saltwater. It just won't. So it won't. But man, we've got some great guests, some people that want to come on that have a lot of freshwater experience. Chris is one of them. So before we jump into that, just want to go through the sponsors. So Great Bay Outfitters on Radio Road in Tuckerton, New Jersey. They're selling out of all their boats. The last I checked, I think Paul said that he had one EPDL Pro left and one, I think, regular big water EPDL. So if you're looking for the EPDL, he's not getting any more back in stock this year, or at least he doesn't plan to. So get there quick, get there before I do. I keep saying to him, all I have to do is sell one more $1 million house and I'm going to go buy those kayaks. So see if you can beat me. But get down there. Anything that you need for kayak fishing, Paul's definitely the way to go. Went down there and got a kayak from his shop for a week while we were on vacation in Brigantine. It was awesome. Next one, Quad State Tune. If you have a Toyota truck and it's gear hunting, this will help. This will solve that for you. And if you're towing a boat, you definitely want to get a tune for that. These tunes will take care of any issues that you have, make it much more efficient, much easier to pull that boat. And then me, Southeastern Pennsylvania, real estate. If you want to buy, sell, even invest, it's a tough market for investing right now, but give me a call, an email, or text. You can email me at natolirealestate@gmail.com. My number is 267-270-1145. You can also feel free to text me just to talk fishing. I don't mind getting texts to talk fishing. Yes, that's the number I use for work too, but it's mostly fishing talk. Let's just be honest about that. No matter how busy I am, I'm constantly looking at pictures of other people's fish and strategizing with people, actually, which I did over the weekend, and to good results for the guy that was out fishing. So with that, then one last thing, I am going to make the announcement at the end of the show for the guests for next week. You're going to want to be in the chat next week. I don't care if you're on vacation, it's worth skipping if you like fish and salt water. So we're going to get to that at the end. So with that said, I'm bringing on my buddy who I haven't talked to in way too long, Chris Matuson. Good to see you, man.
Great to see you, Rich. Glad you're feeling good, on the mend, and you look fantastic. Good to see you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I actually get my 1 year scan tomorrow. So I'm going to be, which is great timing after that guy was killed in an MRI machine. Going in tomorrow, I can make sure I don't have anything. I tend to wear some bracelets with metals in it and everything. I got to make sure I'm clean because I don't want
to. Yeah. Make sure you take all those off. You don't want any malfunction in there. So
yeah. So I got to make sure. I'm the type of guy that'll stick in my head until I'm actually in there.
Right.
Like that, because I'm the guy that would do something like that. So welcome back.
Thanks.
It's been a long time. Part of it was I was gone for a year, then back for a very short period of time, and then took a year off. But I've been following you, and I have been really jealous. And for anyone, I'm just going to tell everyone, I've been trying to get your trout spots because I know they're near me. And just so you know, Mr. Matuson does not share his trout spots, just like he does not share his striper spots.
I'll just say it's in Chester County, so I'll just leave it at that. Chester County, PA. So I do travel, like you travel down here for saltwater. I travel
Yep.
up there for trout because I will not fish a lake ever for trout. I have to get out on the stream and do that because I grew up there. So I
Yeah.
definitely come up there in the spring. I fish up there all winter. That's actually my favorite time of year to fish. But I'll still catch them in the summer too. So I love it up there.
Yeah, it's nice. And for those that haven't fished southeastern Pennsylvania, Chester County has some great streams. And Montgomery County, which is where I live and I spend most of my time, some really great waters. And they're not necessarily the waters that you think. They're not necessarily the waters that everyone's on, or at least the sections everyone's on. Because you see a lot of, man, you see it all the time. This stupid the trout stocking trucks show up, and for the next 3 weeks, everyone's just huddled right, literally where they dump them out.
Yep.
But those are typically not the best spots. Those are just where they dump the fish because that's where they can get the trucks.
And I love going this time of year, especially August, September, because it's really warm and nobody goes.
Right.
I won't run into one person on the stream because they think, well, now the water's too hot. Either the fish didn't survive or there's not as many fish in there. And you can catch just as many, if not more. And there's still a lot of big holdovers. You just have to be willing to basically sweat it out like we had to
Right.
the last few weeks. But there's great fish to be caught all summer long, fresh and salt. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you haven't been out really recently in the freshwater, right?
Last time freshwater was 2 weeks ago. So I
2
had
weeks ago.
back issues like we were talking about the last couple weeks. Haven't been out. Plan on going out, very shortly. Soon in the next few days, hopefully I can get around better. But I was out there in the 80-degree weather and slaying a lot of slabs and 6.5 pound largemouth on a consistent basis, not just a one shot. I was getting a lot of 4 pounders, 5 pounders, and I wound up getting a 6.5 and a lot of crappies that you would think that you'd have to go to PA or North Jersey to find. Uh,
Right.
but again, I'm blessed. I have both options. I have the fresh and the salt within. I don't want to say exactly how many minutes because people that know me will know where I go. But within a short driving distance. But the freshwater scene midsummer, uh, you can get big fish. You just have to know when to go and where to find them and what to use. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's similar to saltwater, so you're still going for salt. Let's start with saltwater. So you're going to be you're going to be targeting striped bass, right? I mean, that's your thing, right?
Yeah, bluefish are okay if they come through earlier in the summer, but they pretty much left out of here now, except for small ones here or there. But yeah, striped bass from the spring all through the summer, 90 degrees out in the weeds with the bug spray and the waders,
Yeah.
high humidity. But again, you can. I wouldn't underestimate the size that you can catch either, because a lot of people think, well, it's just resident fish, smaller ones. Bigger ones won't, come up in the shallows and hit with high humidity. But I've proved that wrong. But you have
Right.
to fish smart. You have to. Um, I always, I look for current and moving water because without that, right, the humidity just sucks the oxygen out of the water. So I think if you look for those things and, at dawn and dusk, midday, again, not saying you can't get them during midday, but that's definitely out for me this time
Yeah.
of year. So if the sun's already come up, I'm already done. And once it goes down at nighttime, that's another time I'll go out. But yeah, summertime's a great time.
Yeah. So what is so you got 3 times. You've got dawn, dusk, and overnight. What would be if you have, 3 hours to fish and somebody said, look, I see Tad in the chat there. Tad says, "Hey, Chris, I got 3 hours to fish for striped bass. What time of day should I go?" Which one of those three are you going to tell him?
False dawn.
False dawn.
Absolutely. This time of year, what is it? Sun comes right in my bedroom, so I know every day what it wakes me up, what time it's coming up. So if uh, if it's light outside at 5:10, yeah, I'm pretty much out there at an hour prior.
Okay.
Gives me a nice, I mean, I won't do 3 hours, but if somebody has 3 hours for me, an hour before it's even light outside, before you can even see, and maybe like an hour and a half into that, because really until the sun gets really high enough where it, really starts to affect the water, I think you got a good, hour and a half, 2 hour window. But I like dawn because the it allows the water to cool enough overnight, especially freshwater. I know we're talking about saltwater right now, but um, at least for bigger fish, I've always gotten bigger fish at dawn than at dusk. Maybe it's just the spots I go to, but that's always been better for me. There's no boat traffic all
Yeah.
night long, so the water settles down. When you go at dusk, you still have jet skiers, stuff, people flying by on their boats.
Yeah.
Um, I just haven't done quite as well, but dawn, absolutely, that's my time to go.
One thing I'll add is for striped bass in the summer. So I used to do that like exclusively for well over a decade. That would be all I would do with striped bass. And what I did notice is if I'm fishing from land, I'm 100%. I'm fishing the morning. Overnight is fine either for either one. It's about the same to me. But the reason I think, and what I came to believe is during the day, those striped bass, they're going to look for more comfort, right? So they're typically going to find the cooler water, which has the higher oxygen content, and they're just going to kind of, I won't say hunker down, but they're going to look for that current that's down deep, which means that it quite often does push it a little bit further out from those sod banks.
Yep.
You get those mid-channel currents. Bridges become outstanding during the day if you need to fish during the day. So in my mind, I always kind of equated the dusk was when they're moving up, and they're now starting to go back into the shallows, which is, let's just face it, it's easier feeding if you can find a current in the shallows than it is a current in the deep.
Right.
It just compresses that bait for them. So I tend to, for that reason, I agree with you. If I'm going to fish from shore and it's not going to be deep, and deep, I'm talking like over 10 feet.
Right.
If it's not going to be deep, I'm going to be fishing in the dawn time period. False dawn is great. I don't get to fish false dawn very often because I just don't like leaving here at 2 a.m. But to get down there to fish for a couple hours. But yeah, so that's a good point. Now warmer water. So right now it's about 80 degrees in some of the areas in New Jersey, as an example. It's a little cooler up north. It's a little warmer down in Maryland and Delaware. What are you doing as far as baits? Like let's just talk your lures all day, but are you using larger or smaller? Let's just talk about the size of the baits to start.
Zara spooks all summer long. That's the same thing I use in the spring. I guess I don't know, they're the saltwater ones. They're not, the big 8 or 10 inch ones that people
Yeah.
throw in the fall, but they're, the regular, I guess, I
They're
don't know,
5 inch, right?
5 inch ones
Yeah.
with the noise chamber in them. And yeah, the retrieve is going to vary. Um,
That was my next question.
but one area that I've really found the bigger fish is where you can reach the channel current from the bank, where you have maybe 3 to 4 foot of water, and at the end of the cast, I can hit the edge of that current,
Yeah.
and they usually sit right on the inside edge of that. So the biggest ones I've ever gotten midsummer, um, except for ones in like a windstorm, tornado warning a couple years ago. Other than that, they've all been like on the edge of that current. I can get fish, hit in the side banks, in the little coves, but they tend to be smaller fish. But if you're looking for, 32, 34 inch plus fish, that's where I've seemed to find them is, whether they're coming off of the sod bank and back into the deeper water as dawn is happening, or
Right.
maybe they're on their way in to feed. But literally, as far as I can cast, at least the one spot I go, when I hit the channel there, it hits right on the edge of the channel and a couple cranks, and that's usually where they're sitting. They may swirl a couple times, but you just got to keep at it, and that's where they usually sit for me. So
So I want to go through and just show. I mean, we're not talking. This is a July fish on the screen for those that are watching the live stream or the video. Right. This you just caught this, right? Or maybe last year.
that was last year. So those are all July and August fish.
Okay.
My
I mean, so
so that fish was a couple weeks ago. That largemouth, that was almost 6.5 pounds. The first largemouth I got last year, that was a little over 5. I think my son actually caught that one, and I had to get a picture of me with.
yeah,
But same thing. We used to go for freshwater after dinner at sunset, and we would do well. But then 2 years ago, I said, you know what? I let me try this at dawn when nobody's around, nobody's casted all night long, water cools down a bit, and jackpot. I don't
yeah.
go I don't go at dusk anymore for freshwater in the summer. It's always at dawn. So
That I okay. So let me ask this real quick. So I was just thinking about this. So you're hauling that spook as far as you can to hit that channel current, right?
correct.
When it hits the water, I actually my brother's in the chat. I think it was him that we were having this discussion on my boat years ago. When it lands, what are you doing? Are you letting it sit for a second, or are you immediately working that lure?
I let it sit.
Okay.
In the spring, no, I'll let it sit there for a second and I'll just start cranking away at it, right? Water's cooler. They're a little more aggressive, but especially on the edge of the channel there, I'll let it hit, let that sound echo through the water underneath, and then start cranking. Same thing with
Okay.
with creek channels, right? You find a creek channel dumping out into the bay this time of year. I mean, that's golden too. But I definitely let it sit on impact and then start the retrieve.
And are you going slower in the hot weather?
Uh, Probably not. It varies again because you may have a lot short strike it, or you might see the coming up behind it, right? The wake, and maybe
Yeah.
they're just not moving fast enough to catch up to it. So I think once you get that first swell or the first swirl, or you get that first fish, you could kind of gauge the retrieve. But this time of year, I find more that if I miss a fish in the spring, I'll just keep going with it, and eventually he'll come get it. Where now, if I miss a fish, I'll get a couple more twitches of the rod, and then I'll just let it sit. And usually that's the impact. It's usually not on a hard retrieve. It's if you see them coming, just stop it, let them catch up to it, and then they just inhale it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's something that I know I didn't used to do that. I would just go like, "This is my retrieve," and if there's something chasing it and never quite gets it, I figure, well, it interested it, so I'm just going to do it again. I don't think I was thinking enough, or I don't even think I realized. But there's a certain draw when that bait stops.
Correct.
I mean that's I mean think about it. They're feeding, and if they're not catching up to it, why not vary that retrieve a little bit and give it a try? And I'll tell you what, that works for fluke really well.
Right.
I'll bounce between the Skinner rapid jigging and a slow jig, and even a dead stick at times is what will get them if I just feel bumping. And I'm pretty sure it's not the machine guns from those what the blowfish and all all of those.
Right.
I'll just let it sit there and see what happens. And quite often that's where you end up getting the fish. But I do like this. I do like the slower retrieve.
A lot of my summer bites, they're reactionary strikes. So,
Yeah.
if you annoy them enough, they're really, really going to get worked up. But again, like you said, chasing it. Like I'm very stubborn. I've always been stubborn when it comes to fishing. don't change my ways. I do the same thing, and I just don't like a lot of change. But that's one thing I did change a few years ago, especially in the summer, was varying that retrieve and varying it to, the really the air temperature outside. I mean, even freshwater is the same way. They're very aggressive in the spring, even up until maybe the second week of June. But once we get into these conditions now, um, you just really have to be patient. But at the same time, there's going to be days where it's just not going to happen, and you have to be okay with that. And like right now, we have conditions changing tonight. We have a cold front came through last night.
Right.
Humidity's dropping tonight. They said it dropped today, but trust me, it really didn't drop down here today. But the breeze is going to change northeast, hint, hint, or northwest, another hint. Those are huge key factors for me. If I see 7 days of southeast wind, um, not going to happen. If I see the heavy west wind for days, not going to happen because I'm really not into doing the gnat thing anymore. That got old after a couple of years. I'm just not into the bug thing, but anymore. If I have to, I will. But the northeast and the northwest wind, if you can get that midsummer, those days could be epic days for fresh end salt. It's really not going to change. To me, it changes the temperature on top of the water. It
Right.
that heat off the top. So you'll go out and you'll still see the fog coming off the water, but you have the cool breeze. I've always caught fish in those conditions. Whenever I see that, usually I'll then start to see fish feed on top. That gives me a clear indication that, hey, we're not just going to get reactionary strikes, we're going to get hunger strikes here. And usually those days turn out really, really well. And you can
Yeah.
stick it out a little bit longer, right? Because the humidity isn't as high. Um, I think wind direction in the summer is a huge key between catching mediocre fish and catching really, really decent sized fish. Just that couple degree in water temperature and that little bit of oxygenation that gets back into the water. When you walk outside and you feel the fish are feeling the same thing. But when you get
Right.
that breeze, I think it's a sigh of relief and fresh and salt. It's kind of like hitting the reset button.
Yeah. I wonder if it's an interesting point that you bring up about that. The one thing that we know is that the smaller fish are more, well, I don't even know if this is a fact, but it seems to be pretty common consensus. The smaller fish are the more reactionary, right? So they're the ones that are, it's easier to piss off a small fish. I shouldn't say small, like a smaller striped bass than it is a big one. So the reactionary strike, if you're going out there to catch big fish, it's not ideal to go on pure reaction strikes.
Right,
You want when the big girls are feeding, that's when you want to be out there. And it makes sense that if it's a cooler top on the water, more oxygen up there, more bait up there,
right.
it should bring them up there. That's where the fish are and the feed. So it makes sense that's where they're going to go.
And I don't change my spots either. I just want to throw that in there. So my spring spots are my summer spots, fresh end salt, whether it's streams, lakes around here, streams in PA, or the sod banks. Um, it's you can find me on the same exact spots that I am in the spring and in the fall. It's just really very selective on the time of day, and I think tide height is a huge thing too. It's very important for me in the spring to get those really really high tides on the side to get that extra water depth and really bring them in close into those coves and pockets. But I think this time of year, because the ocean really is always cooler than the bay for the most part, it really helps bring some cooler water into that shallow water. So if it's really not a moon tide, I'm probably not going. But if I can get those key factors where I get some breeze, I get, not really a spring tide, but one of the higher high tides. And I think tonight it looked like it was going to be that way. I didn't check the moon, but um, those are all key factors. So,
Yeah. And you do need to consider, I was taught this a long time ago. look at when the tides are if you're looking at the extreme tide. So even like full moon, you're going to have an extreme low. And if you have that extreme low during the day, late in the day, that water, like, it's going to expose some mud flats, right? So maybe something that could have 6 inches of water at low tide or a foot is now down to nothing. Well, that's just going to heat up. So it's going to take longer to cool that off once that tide starts coming in. So your spot could be awesome, but it might not necessarily be awesome just because it's incoming tide on that day, because it's coming over 90-degree mud, whereas before it was coming over 80-degree saturated,
Right.
underwater area. So it does change where they're likely to be. And those are things that a lot of people don't consider when they're going out to stalk these fish. You just figure, well, I caught it here at 1 hour before high tide last Thursday. Right. But that's not the whole picture.
Right.
That's just a small part of it. So I think there's a lot of that goes on as well. And a lot of people don't think about that. But I mean, just let's be fair though. Fishing's supposed to be fun too. I mean, you don't necessarily want to sit down and spend 5 hours analyzing everything that you did, but those are considerations for anyone that's going out to hit the water.
Well, I think you have to, and we've talked about this on prior shows we've done, like you have to do that in the beginning. Like to be successful on a consistent basis, you have to have, those couple years where, you kind of figure out what worked, what didn't work. There's very few people that can just go out and fish and not, and people badmouth freshwater and they say, well, it's not as difficult. That is not true.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
And I think it's even, or should I say, they don't give the freshwater guys enough credit and say, well, they're in a lake or they're in a stream. They're not really going away. They're always there. Where there's more factors in saltwater. But when you look at freshwater, right, you have fishing pressure, especially this time of year. Lakes that have restricted bank access. I used to do a lot of kayak, but I don't do a lot anymore. So I'm, from the bank all the time. But there's fishing pressure. There's the water temperature. There's the food source. Right. There's lily pads. There's a lot of things that happen in the summer. And you have to understand that to be successful. It's not any easier than saltwater is. I think a lot of the factors are the same, right? If you're on a lake, whether either by a dam, right, or a creek channel that is running underneath the lake, a spring in there, something that's giving a little bit of cooler water and giving that oxygen. That's what you want to look for. But you just can't go out and say, well, I'm just going to be successful and I don't want to put the time in and figure out what I did right or what I did wrong, because I don't think they really stay at it too long, or that they're consistent on catching smaller fish. And again,
Right.
that's fine. I mean, but I'm not looking to go catch 13-inch crappies either. I mean, last year
Right.
I had them up to 17 and a half inches. I just about cracked the 18-inch mark. And these are local waters. They're not North Jersey. They're not Pennsylvania. Um, in the middle of the summer, where most people thought, oh, well, they're done spawning late spring. They get off the rocks. They go hide in brush piles. And that may be true for some of them, but I've gotten slabs for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years of my boy all summer long. And it never stopped.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. Yeah. I told this story. I think it may have been last week or the week before of, uh, it was saltwater. I was down in the Outer Banks, and I wanted to go for speckled trout, but I was vacation with my family. So I went to the beach with the family in the morning. Everyone's back at the house at around noon. So I jump in the truck, and like I always do, I hit a local tackle shop, whether I need something or not. I buy some stuff I don't need, grab some ice because it was like 98 degrees. And they said, well, what are you going fishing for? And I said, specks. And they like laughed at me. Like, you can't catch specks in the middle of the day. I was like, I'm going to. And I went out and I had a banner. I have a video of it. I have a banner day out there. I mean, nice specks out in the the bay on the flats, on the grass flats, and you just have to understand how they move and what they need at any given point. You have to be willing to go get them, and I think that's
There, right? They haven't moved. I mean, the same
no,
fish you catch in the spring in the bay, they're still there, except for the ones that, people have taken out. But for the most part, they are feeding the same, they're behaving the same, you catch them the same way. You just have to adjust your approach.
right.
Um, yeah, it's hot, it's mucky, it's buggy, but if you're willing to put that aside, you can still catch quality fish all summer. And I really like the summer because it seems like since COVID, right, everybody wants to fish now. Everybody's a fisherman, and there's twice as many people in the bay, on the bridges at nighttime, on the side banks, when you trout fishing, right, in PA. Everybody's a fisherman now. Everybody goes fishing.
Right.
Not that that's a bad thing, but I prefer to go when I don't have to see or be around a lot of people. It's other things for me other than just catching the fish. So, when I go to PA and trout fish, I mean, I'm up there the crack of dawn, even, if it's still dark out, and midsummer, we're hitting the fast water, the fastest water I can find, and the deep pockets that water runs into. Same spots
Yeah.
I fish in the spring, but the deep holes, the slow running ones, I'm not touching those in the summer. I want that oxygenated water, especially when we're talking streams that the deepest part you could find is 3.5 feet. Really
Right.
shallow streams. They don't, we're not 5, 6, 7 feet or 4 foot rapids. They're not that way. So it's very strategic in the spots you need to look for. But, it's great fishing to be had all summer long, regardless of the temperature.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you do much bridge fishing? And I'm asking because of a question from participation trophy fishing, asking about fishing bridges at night. So this is common. You always see the striped bass under the lights around the bridges at night year round. And they're tough to catch though, if you fish them that way.
So I've had the least amount of luck when I used to do the bridge thing, but I would cast, off the side bank because I don't like the pier thing, right? Everybody's out on the
Yep.
piers. People are junking bait out there that you can't get near any shadow line. It's just a disaster. So I've always caught my best fish in the direction of where those fish are surfacing. But yeah, always away from the majority you see breaking water. It's a good
Yeah.
sign. But again, whatever they're feeding on, they're feeding on. And usually they don't want what I'm throwing. Um, but if I got soft plastics in the summer and I'm on a side bank and I can go along that shadow line and I see that action, yeah, it usually always produces. So
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the key. It's the shadow line. It's not in the lights where you're seeing them. If they're in the lights where you're seeing them, you're probably not going to catch them.
correct.
In my experience, actually, they're typically at this time of the year, maybe in a few weeks from now, it's really a cinder worm bite.
Yep.
So good luck getting some when they're feeding cinder worms. Good luck getting them to bite other things. It's really difficult because they are just, and you can tell because they're slurping them in, at the top.
I've had them break right at my feet, and you're right. It's almost like a freshwater crappie or even like a tarpon, right? The way they come up and feed, they just come up, open up, and right back down. There's no aggressiveness about it. There's no,
No.
and they're just not going to bite whatever else you throw out there. But a lot of times you got flounder mixed in there too.
Yes.
If you can find a shallower flat in toward the side bank in between you and that channel where that's happening, usually on an outgoing tide, you could definitely find some nice flounder or weak fish up on that sand flat. Uh,
Yep.
so you can't count that out either. I mean, it's a good sign, but I wouldn't say that is where I would always fish though, because again, those are not the big fish that are
Right.
coming up in the lights. They're maybe in that vicinity, but they're not. They're usually not the ones feeding that you see. So
Right. Yeah, I personally would stick to those shadow lines and go off to the side for the most part. And I've talked about fishing bridges at night, and yeah, I'll fish through the lights, but it's because my technique requires that I hit the shadow line. So I throw far as I can up beyond and into the dark, so I can then bring it back with the current into the light, and then I don't expect anything until it gets under the bridge, and you get that sharp shadow line on the other. It's basically the other side of the bridge, and I'll let it kind of run through there. And that's typically where I'll get the fluke or the striped bass is on the back side of the bridge, because that's just, I mean, they fish the back side of the structure. That's the best spot to be. So, um, yeah, so that was a good question though. I would not go, especially if you know that they're biting cinder worms. This is just me. If I know they're eating cinder worms, I don't even try for those. I move off to the sides and just let them do their thing. Because if you've ever seen a cinder worm, good luck replicating what it does. You can use, there are cinder worm flies that I hear are okay, but it's really a weird bite. They just come up and slurp it, and, and that's it. They slurp it and disappear.
When you see that in the spring, it's a lot easier to get into the mix with those fish that are doing that. But yeah, summertime, and you know what? Some of them they may not even be feeding; they may be just coming up for air, and they're not biting anything. So I really
Right.
have gotten kind of away from that. Don't really do a whole lot of that because again, I run into where I used to run into two or three people. Now you run into 10 people. So
Yeah.
everybody's doing something different. Um, Tough to kind of get a pattern going when you're fishing in the middle of all that. So I would this time of year at this point in my fishing journeys, I would find a nice quiet spot where no one's around. Uh, Even if you don't see anything feeding, you can usually find something as long as it's outgoing and you got some current. You'll find some fish in it. Don't pay attention and think, well, that's where I have to be. They're not the only fish in the bay, and they're not the only fish that may be feeding. You'd be surprised if you walk another eighth of a mile or go into some total darkness what you'll find there. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I tend to, especially at night, I do tend to try to avoid people. Um, I have found that it's at night that other people tend to be, how do I say this?
just go ahead and say it because I'll say it for you. Go ahead.
They tend to be assholes. They tend to be rude, and they tend to not care about anybody else. And a good percentage of them are drunk. And I just, that's not what I'm looking for. I mean, I don't know if that's what you were going to say or not, but I've run into a lot of aggressive people.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. So 2 years ago, I found that 3 nights in a row, different groups of people, but same thing. I was catching fish, but the drinking, pot smoking. Listen, you do whatever you want to do. I don't. But that's for me. Like I'm out there to catch fish. I'm not out there to get high, get drunk, or whatever. Right? You want to do that, you
Yeah.
go somewhere else. Um, just shitting up the water. It's just a bad scene. It's a bad look. And again, I didn't see a whole lot of that before COVID, but I think it's just the way the world's changed. I see a lot of that now. So that's another reason why you just don't see that at dawn.
Right. No, no, you don't.
I hope now that we're just going to go give this guy our time and we're just going to start showing up at dawn. But it's a lot harder for people to get up at 4:30 and be there at dawn than it is when you're already partying, you're already drinking, you're already wound up, you got some rods in your car, or do you know what? I found they're not even fishing. They're just out there
Right.
being a fool and kind of ruin it for everybody else. So that's another reason to go at dawn is because you don't have to be exposed to the jackasses out there at nighttime. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You and I are on the same page with that. So let's make a pivot over to the freshwater, because you have done a lot of that recently. And you mentioned that you do a lot local and in Pennsylvania. So let's start off with trout. So summertime trout, which nobody does, because apparently they're not there.
I think
What's that?
they've all died, or the
Yeah,
creek is empty because now you can't look down and see them sitting in the hole. So there must
right.
magically be no fish.
right, exactly. So it's a great time to go. So are you looking for the same? So let me just describe a couple of local streams to me. I literally have one that I could run down to in just a couple minutes down the street from here. So it's the Perkiomen Creek.
Yep.
It is a in this area. It is a straight, flat, about maybe 2 feet, maybe 3 feet deep, with a lot of boulders and a lot of rocks, and a decent current, but it's pretty consistent. Just based on that description, are you fishing that for trout?
Probably not.
Exactly. Okay.
But if I am, I'd say on the backside of those boulders, using a fly rod and just kind of letting it drift. But those are tough conditions in the summer if you don't have those real fast shoots that kind of
Yes.
go into those holes, because they'll sit in the holes as long as you got that fast shoot going down in there. But at the same time, you know what? I don't know whether that creek holds smallmouth or not, but
Yes.
then I'd probably still fish it anyway, because a trout may be may not be
It'll be your bycatch.
a lot of those, but smallmouth in those streams are smallmouth fishing can be intense in the summertime. They're one of the best fighting fish
Yeah.
there are. Uh, Saltwater fishermen will tell you something else, but again, that's to each their own. But a freshwater guy will tell you that smallmouth bass are the best fighting fish there are, and to catch them midsummer, whether you got shiners or crankbaits in creeks, I love it. I love it. The creeks I go on, if it's a bad day for the trout and I'm not getting many, I guarantee I'm catching dozens of smallmouth. So the trip is never wasted. I'm getting one or the other or both.
Yeah. So here's another description. So it feeds. I'm thinking of a very specific spot. It feeds into the Perkium. It's one of the branches. There's a section that comes there. It comes from a slow moving narrows, and then you get a pretty decent current, and I'm talking boulders the size of a car.
Right.
And it just rips around there. You have all the eddies in there, and it gets down to around, I think at the deepest, maybe 4.5 feet at the deepest. For the most part, it's, on the edges, it's maybe 2 feet, and it gets down to probably 3 is the average.
Yep.
And a lot of it's actually just mentioned in the chat. And there's a nice bend. You fish in that bend and behind those boulders, and what are you fishing for right now? If you look at that,
Well, first I'm going to fish that chute.
yeah,
I don't know whether it's like a waterfall that comes down, or it's just like where you can cast through. But regardless, if it's a chute or if it's like a waterfall as soon as that hits the water and starts to level out, I'm fishing that fast water with a number 4 blade. Where again, people say, "Oh no, that's too big," and you got to scale down the summer. They're not as hungry, or they just won't bite those big lures. I use a number 4 all year round, especially in the summer, so I can get down in that current really, really fast. Um, if it's at dawn, usually, again, that's when I'll start getting on the creek. I would fish it at dawn with a number 4 blade, get it down in that current. If they're not right in the current, then I would just keep moving myself up toward that hole, like as the current starts to slow down a bit, and I would fish it until that current basically. You know how I gauge it? Like if you throw power bait out, right? Not a big power bait guy, but I mean sometimes, right, in the spring,
yeah,
what it is, and that's what works. But I won't fish it in holes. I don't do that type of fishing. But when you throw it in the current, if it's not even drifting in that, that's where I'll stop fishing then. As long
okay,
as the current is still moving where I could still get some kind of drift, that's where I'll put a Panther Martin down in there. And usually that'll work for me. But if there's boulders and there's fast current, and especially a corner, that sounds like a totally different setup than the last one you explained. So I would be more prone to go back to that location than the other one. 100%.
yeah. And Chris, these are 100 yards apart. That's it. 100 yards from what I do really well in the shoot area. Um, I don't talk about freshwater fishing a lot. I consider that more of a I don't know, a hobby rather than an obsession. So, which is
You're
why I focused
selling
this.
yourself short. It's more than a hobby. It's because I could tell you that, I grew up in Chester County, in Coatesville, lived there for 18 years, fished there for 18 years. I haven't lived there since I was 18. And I'll go up there any time of the year and I'll outfish any local on that creek up there.
Yeah,
Again, I wouldn't sell yourself short on that. I mean, again, a lot of local guys think they know it all and they know all the spots to go to, but you use what you know in freshwater and you turn that into saltwater, right? Because I don't think we've talked about anything different as far as approach or
nope.
conditions or fast water uh, structure. It is 100% the same, right? The lures vary, size of the fish vary, but time of day for me, um, wind direction, location, inside current, right on the outside of currents, right? Because when you have a shoot, that's kind of like um, in the bay, that's like the channel. So
Yeah.
they're not sitting on the chat, they're sitting right on the outside, like not in the really in the eddy, but like right before that water then starts to turn around and go back the other way. They're like right on that edge. So there's so many similarities. And again, if you match your tackle with what you're catching, it's really all the same. I mean, I don't go to PA whether I'm bass fishing, trout fishing, with ever more than 2 or 4 pound line with a 5 foot ultralight rod. So you get an 18-inch trout on the end of there or a 20-inch, right? It feels like a 10-pound striker. Again, people will
Oh
argue,
yeah.
it's not. No, it is. It is the same. Freshwater fishing down here, I don't change the tackle. I still use my ultralight rods, 4 pound line. You get a 6.5 pound largemouth on 4 pound test line on the bank. It's
That's something.
so to be successful for somebody that wants to cross over, you just use the same approach. It's not rocket science. Stop following reports that you got to use this, you got to use that, you got to go to this bait shop. No, that is not. If you use the same tactics, you will be successful, whether it's fresh or salt. Yes, there's minor adjustments. Yes, the lures change. Yes, the tackle changes. But if you use that approach, I think you'll be successful. Even if you haven't done it a whole lot or it's your first year, say, no, well, I want to go back and do some freshwater fishing because that's what I did, right? I
Yeah.
did freshwater fishing for years. Uh, Still always went to PA to trout fish every single year, except for maybe 2 years, the last 20 years. But freshwater largemouth crappies, once I got my son involved years back, that's when I really started getting down into it again here. And again, it's like, oh no, the deeper you go in South Jersey, it sucks down there. If you're, Millville, Vineland, toward Philly, it's fantastic. Or if you're Central Jersey, up toward New York, fantastic. But if you're Atlantic County down to Cape May, nah, it's no good. Well, you just got to follow my post because
I was going to say, there are a couple of you guys that I have in my feed that say otherwise.
yeah, and again, it's not to brag. You know me better than most guys. Like I'm
Yeah.
the most humble guy. I love to help kids when they're out fishing around. I got no problem giving them some lures I have, or telling them what to do. Like, but again, I don't think the freshwater scene gets enough credit. But if you do it the right way with the right tackle, um, and you put the time in, it's not quite as easy as some people think it is to get quality fish on high pressure lakes that are
Right.
maybe a couple hundred acres and less. Yeah, the fish are always there. They don't have anywhere to go. But good luck catching those if you haven't really, figured it out. And once you figure it out, you can really get solid fish.
Yeah, I agree. I don't talk about freshwater on this channel a lot because honestly, the way that this started was everything that I had been told was pick a niche and stick with it, and it was salt water.
Sure.
And I started with flounder, and flounder it's my favorite to go out fishing for because I love the hunt of them, but it's not what I fished for the most. And I've been fishing saltwater since I was a little kid, and all these years, so 50 years of that. But the entire time I've been fishing freshwater too, I just don't talk about it. I don't consider myself an expert in it. I don't take it as seriously, but I also don't do as good in freshwater, probably because of that.
You're not taking it as serious as you should. I could tell you,
Right.
I didn't for a while when me and my boy would go when he was a lot younger, because as far as I was concerned, as long as he's catching something, um, that is a win-win. But
Yeah.
now he's gotten older, we become more competitive with it, and you know, 13, 14-inch crappies just aren't, they're not doing it for us anymore. 10-inch yellow perch isn't doing it anymore.
Yeah.
3-pound catfish isn't happening. If we're looking for 8-pound catfish, we're looking for 5-pound and up bass, and we're looking for 17-inch and up crappies. And when we started doing that and getting very, very serious about it, about the approach, certain lures, whether it be live bait, whether it be uh, jigs, whether it be spinner baits, whatever, that's then when we started getting a lot of big quality fish. And that's, yeah, you got to get serious about it. You're going to catch some really, really
Yeah.
freshwater fish. Just get serious.
So I was really serious about it when I was in college. So I went to Bloomsburg, which is like
I went to York.
within. Oh, okay. So it's I was within. I mean, trout streams. Freshwater fishing is amazing around the Bloomsburg area. You drive up to 2 hours, depending on where you want to go, and you are in some of the. And I'm talking, you want native trout that are 20 inches,
Yep.
and you don't mind hiking. And we're in college. We didn't mind. We would go in and we would hike 4 miles upstream before we even thought about taking the rods out and fishing. As
Yep.
a matter of fact, my buddy Brad and I took a summer class just so that one class. How stupid is that? One class so we could stay at school, and it was volleyball. It was volleyball. We took volleyball Friday morning, once a week, Friday morning for an hour and a half, and the rest of the week was fishing,
Yep.
and that's all we did. So talk about, I mean, we were nailing trout, smallmouth, walleye was big in that area. Walleye
Yep.
got good at that. Never caught the muskie though. Catfish and carp, all of those great fighting, great fights on all of them, and we got really really good at it. And then I think after that, when I moved back home, got out of school, started working, it was family house at the shore, so it was just head down there and hit the boat, and back to bluefish, tuna, shark, and all that stuff.
And I think it's a lot about, like you said, the location. Like I went to York College, Pennsylvania, not too far from there, and Lake Redmond is 10 minutes from the college, and
Yep.
I found a spot there. And for my last 2 years there, I was catching 30-pound carp with saltwater gear, uh, like it was going out of style. And I actually brought him back a couple of times, put him in the school fountain, got in trouble, whatever.
Yeah.
Again, it's just, kind of what's in the area and that was great for me at the time I was up there. When I lived in New York, I had both. I did more salt than fresh, right? Because I lived in Queens. I had, the bay and the surf there, but Long Island Sound still had some freshwater options, right? But when I come back down here, I have the best of both worlds. I mean, I have the
Yeah.
10 minutes, I have freshwater options literally from my door. So now it's really the choice of, how much time do I have this morning? What other stuff do I have to do? If I'm going to go to the bay, I need to give myself a little bit more time. But if I want to just go get a quick bite and try and get a quality fish, and I got, even we go out at dusk, and even sometimes at dawn, he'd go up before he gets to go to school, before school ends the end of June. And, we got 20 minutes, we got a half hour before the bus. So a lot of it's, if you don't have all the time to go to saltwater, switch to fresh. Use the same
Yeah.
tactic. You'll be just as successful. So
Yeah. I worked in Ballackinwood for years, up until like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was right near the Schuylkill. So I would, on lunch, I would literally just, I had a rod in the truck or the car, whichever I owned at the time, and I would just drive down to one of the public areas and just go on the Schuylkill and catch smallmouth for the entire lunch, and then I just head back, literally just head right back and go right into a meeting, smelling like fish.
smallmouth, what a great fish.
They are.
And it doesn't matter the size, right? You could get an 8 or a 9-inch one, and they'll still hit like they're 16 inches, but you really get a a good size, like 14, 16, 18 incher on midsummer and some fast water, uh, man, they're just off to the races with that, with the drag. So, but there's
Yeah.
many options. Summer, a lot of people just give it up and say, well, I'll wait till the fall run. Uh, Okay, but if you still want to wet a line, there's a lot of quality fish still out there. You're going to have to work for it, but there's still a lot of good fish to be had.
Yeah. I don't like the thought that just wait. People say, "Oh, just pack it up. It's December." I'm not packing it up. I'm going to find something else to fish for. Like they say, the striper run is over. You may as well pack it up. Well, no, I'm going to fish tog until the boats stop running,
Right.
and then I'm going to switch to the Chesapeake. I'm going to find some, white perch, or I'm going to head, back in the rivers in New Jersey, and I'm going to go for white perch. There's plenty of things to go for, and the summer is one of the ones where you just got to think about it. They're still there, and they're still eating. They have to eat.
Yep.
So you just have to be there when they need to eat, and you got a good shot at them.
It's just a shorter window, and you have to go
Yeah.
a couple times and figure it out. You can't get disgusted the first or second or third outing because once you figure it out, it's pretty much consistent all summer long. That is what is going to work. That's the spot they're going to be, and whatever that feeding window is on the next moon, you can pretty much bank that they're going to be there doing the same thing. But again, each area, right, has its different approach. You're not going to catch them in one area the same way you may catch them in another, but just have a couple areas, experiment with them. But that whole premise that, well, it's only small fish in the summer or it's only dinks under the lights, that is not true, because that picture that you put for the live feed tonight, the striper there, the one that I'm kind of holding up through the grass there. Now the one that
Oh, the other one.
yeah, the other one that's on the advertise. Yeah, so there you go. That was July 29th. I'm pretty sure it was the 29th, maybe 4 years ago. And I was out with George, and we got nothing for about 3 hours of incoming tide. He went down the road um, to fish a bit, and within 15 minutes, I had two that same size.
Yeah, and and this is what you texted him, right? Like, what'd you leave for?
Well, listen, I'm not one to tell George anything. George could probably school me any day of the week. But again, we were at a spot that really good in the spring. It's okay in the fall, but it was one of those where, hey, you know what? Let's share a tide. Let's go out. I've had a good spring here. Let's go out and see what we can get. And those fish there, I think the problem was that morning is we weren't putting it out far enough, so both of those, and they were back to back fish, and they were between 36, 37 inches, and they were back to back. So,
I mean, you can't argue with that, right? I mean, a late July 36-inch fish.
and I'm sure George probably remembers that day. I mean, I would think, because it was so hot. I mean, literally, the sun wasn't out. It was cloudy all morning, but just the sweat.
Yeah.
And it was just pouring off. We had the bug spray on. It was so uncomfortable, Rich. It was one of the most uncomfortable days I've ever fished in the summer. And I'm thinking, you know what? What am I doing out here, especially for this long? But I gave it another 10 or 15 minutes, and it was gold. So that right there is an example that you could do it in the middle of summer.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, I wanted to bring this up. What are you using for bug spray?
So I'm using Repel, but it's more like an aerosol and not
Yeah.
I guess aerosol, right? But you have the thicker ones. Then when you spray it on, like it's just this, it's like real wet and gooky. I use the thinnest aerosol I can find, because if I have to spray everywhere with it, I don't need it running into my eyes. I don't need to be tasting it. I don't,
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing on top of the bug spray, and some of those pictures you'll see that you showed,
You're covered.
or some people are probably saying, well, he didn't catch those in the middle of summer because he's got long sleeves on, he's got a sweatshirt on. I, I'm just not into getting eaten up. I'd rather sweat it out and cover up and put less bug spray on than to go out in a tank top or a short sleeve and just have to constantly keep, because sometimes no matter what the amount of bug spray you put on, it doesn't matter. But the mask is essential too. When you put the not the COVID mask. What do we call them? What are they?
The buff.
Yeah, the buff. The
Yeah,
the buff is the buff means the difference between staying 5 minutes or sweating it out for an hour. Because
right.
again, if you don't have the buff on the gator, uh, you can't survive out there. It's a little
Yeah,
hard, maybe a little bit, right? But again, you got to go through some pain to catch them in the summer. And I've had my years and my share of going through that, right? Because the brush is higher now. The weeds are now 6 feet tall in spots, where in the spring they were inches tall. Uh, you know, it's a tough go of it, but if you want to suck it up, you can catch fish.
yeah. I'm going to recommend, and actually, Paul just put this in there. Captain Ron's. I was really skeptical. Have you tried that? The Captain Ron's bug stuff.
Good stuff.
So it's extremely expensive, at least where I bought it, and local shop down your way. $12 for a small little pump thing of it. And they say it doesn't have like DEET it doesn't have DEET. It doesn't have those things. I'll tell you what, if you can get used to the bugs landing on you but not biting, if you can get used to them, and not react and start, even greenheads, they don't bite you.
Yeah.
This stuff's amazing, but it's $12 for for a little bottle. I was down on vacation. I bought 6 of them. I was like, oh my God. But I'll tell you what, it works and it doesn't have all the chemicals. So you might want to give that a try.
Sounds good, because even if landing on you again, that's not a big deal. But like once you feel the first one, now it's just a matter of how long can I stick this out. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, listen, $12. If it does the job, it does the job. I pay 4.50, $5 a can. It lasts me for 3 years. But there's some days where I'm dying out there thinking, man, there's got to be a better option than
Yeah.
that I bought. So if it's better, like, you got to pay to play. So
Yeah. I would say anybody who's thinking about it, find a shop that carry. And actually, I don't know if Paul has Captain Ron's or not. Um, Maybe he can put that in the stream if he does, but that worked for me. And it worked well enough that we put it on my 1-year-old granddaughter, and we didn't want to put things that had, well, I won't use anything that has DEET anymore or chemicals like that. You get cancer once, you're like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm cleaning up. And yeah, just try it. Just try it. I have no affiliation with them. I was very skeptical when the tackle shop said this works. I was like, yeah, it's because it's $12. It works. No, it actually actually worked. You'll smell like peppermint after, but it works. Just don't get it on your hands if you're going to be touching lures and stuff. Just put it on your arms.
but I think when it comes to bug spray, usually when you do spend more money, they do work better. That's definitely not one of the scams out there. You pay more, it definitely works better. And again, in midsummer conditions, I mean, it can mean the world to keep.
Oh yeah,
If I don't go when there's a west wind, forget about it. I'm just not doing it, whether it's fresh or salt. Freshwater, it's the same way. Don't let anybody tell you, and anybody that's out there that's a freshwater guy say, well, that only applies to salt. Absolutely not. At least
right.
lakes that I go to, if it's a west wind, I get eaten alive out there. So if it's northwest, yeah, I'm okay with that, because there's some trees blocking. It's all right. But if it's just a straight west, fresh or salt, the same applies.
Yeah.
But
No,
no,
I'm with you. I'm with you. I
no.
I will still go if I only have one day to fish and it's a west wind, I will go. But I make the change that I always have multiple things of bug spray, and I have the long sleeve with a hood, performance gear, and I have the neck gator buff thing. And then what I'll do is I'll pull my hat down as far as I can. I'll put the sunglasses on, even if it's foggy. I'll pull the thing all the way up underneath and I will spray my entire body. There were times that I've been out there and in kayaks. And when you're in a kayak, you're done. I
Yeah,
mean, it could take you an hour to get back. So you're there no matter what.
get away.
And there were times that we were out there where thank God we had buffs, because you couldn't breathe because you were swarmed so bad from these damn things. So I was really excited to find that Captain Ron's actually works. I'm shocked. I'm shocked it actually
Especially
works
when
though.
you're in a kayak and you try to go up a creek channel and you make the mistake of rubbing into the brush, into
Yep.
the reeds. And once they come out of there, it literally like you're swallowing them, and you can't paddle out fast enough.
No. And sometimes you can't turn around.
You can't do it. You can't. It's too narrow. You just can't. And then you got to try and backpedal. But um, now on the stream, they never bother me. I never experience really gnats, bugs, even midsummer, whether there's wind, no wind. But again, I'm talking, creeks that it's not a whole lot of effort for me to cross to the other side, to toss it to
Yeah.
the side. It's not, it's not a lot of those big creeks like in the Philly region or whatnot. Um, but the only thing I've ever really dealt with is me and my brother were up there this spring, and the flies, talking about the flies, that they'll feed on top of the water. They actually hatched one day when we were up there, and they were so bad, they were just everywhere, but we caught a lot of fish. And
Yeah.
obvious why, because everybody was feeding because there was a fresh hatch. But, we're like, damn, what the hell is this? It's not gnats, not anything else. We just looked at the water. We're like, wow, these are the same things flying around. It's the same stuff they're eating off the top of the water. So I don't have that problem with a stream. So if you don't want bugs,
Yeah.
fish a stream.
All right. Well, that sounds good. So, all right. Is there anything that you want to? So we're over our hour. Is there anything that you want to kind of share with people about? I think for me, the big thing is it's kind of the theme. Like saltwater and fresh is it's so close. There's so many of the principles that are the same. Um, and it's really, we talked about it with George last in his episode where we just went down to Southern Maryland on the Chesapeake, and he hasn't fished there, and it was crazy. Of course, I explained it like it was almost like he had this glow around him as he was fishing because everything he did was producing and outproducing everybody, and he wasn't hesitating. He's like, "Yeah, you know what? I think this is going to work." So he throws something on. We're like, "What the hell is he doing?" Oh, he's just catching his fifth speck. Oh, he's catching his third red.
It's almost like magic with him.
Yeah, yeah. But it's the same with fresh water.
Listen, if I got to say one thing to close out, I'll say two things. So it's really not that much difference. Even a lot of the combos that they make nowadays, you can use for freshwater and light saltwater midsummer. So it's not like you got to make that big investment, right? If you're getting some big strong gear for the surf in the spring or the fall, right? You can use a 6.5 foot for freshwater with
Yep,
the same action and speed, and use it throwing salt plastics at nighttime in the bay. So
yep,
not really a matter of even changing the equipment sometimes if you don't want to put the expense in there. But, the lures, right? I use crappie jigs, twister tails for crappies and bass in the summer, even catch catfish on them. You're using salt plastics, or small hard baits in the summer for both. Don't shy away from it if you're running low on saltwater stock, right? And things just aren't going your way, and you aren't, look at a freshwater option. You'd be surprised how that works back and forth. Um, but also, you really got to get fish back in the water fast this time of year. Uh,
yeah,
I don't want to get onto that topic because, we could do a whole other show about that because we've gotten into that in the past. But, whether it's largemouth, whether it's stripers, especially freshwater trout, you really got to instantly get them back in, especially the trout. Even if you catch them in that fast water, you could tell when you get them to the bank and you're unhooking that they're just not the same as they are in the spring. In the spring, they can't wait to get back in, and they're just,
right.
you know, they're very lethargic from the heat. Water temperature in those streams sometimes is pushing 85 degrees. Um, Stripers, it's the same way. Just get them back in the water. Don't lay them on the bank. Don't, if you got to get a lure out, whatever you need to do, but just really try to get fish back in the water quickly because they will not survive this time of year at all. I'm not saying don't
No,
target them because some people say, oh, well, don't target striped bass in the middle of summer because it's not healthy. Well, okay, I get it. It's probably not beneficial, but I'm not going to tell people like not to go. But if you are going to go, try to keep them as close to the water as you can and just get them back in. So
Yeah, I agree. If you're going to fish for them. Just do your part and do the best you can to keep them alive after. You do the best you can. You do it responsibly. What happens, happens. And, that's the only thing I'm going to say. I don't judge people for fishing. Then,
Now,
just get them back quick. All
unless
right. Well,
you will lose them this time of year. I mean, some of them just are not going to make it. I mean, if it's if it's a gut hook, then I'm just clipping the line, or I'm clipping as close to the hook as possible.
yep.
Using live bait, they'll usually survive that. You just can't be yanking on it and everything else. If you see that that's where it is, just clip it right next to it. The old theory, right? It'll rust out. Whatever. It's better than yanking on it and spending.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, look, I got it out. Yeah, but he's dead.
Yeah.
So I'd rather do it the other way. Or, when you get them, if you could just using spinners for trout or whatever it is and just, shake them off, just, press the barbs. I don't press barbs, right? Because I'm looking to catch fish. I'm not looking to lose fish. But just get them off as quick as you can and get them back in. And a lot of those fish will survive. Some of them won't make it, but let's face it, they're probably not making it regardless, whether you caught them or they're just somebody else is going to sacrifice them, or they just can't survive the water temp. Just do your part. That's all.
Right. I agree. We're on the same page there. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. It was way overdue talking to you.
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for jumping in the chat. Everybody listening in on the podcast, thank you as well. At this point, let me just announce next week, if you like saltwater fishing for striped bass and fluke, we are going to have John Skinner on. So he's going to be on to talk about pretty much anything we want to talk about. You can be sure I'm going to start asking about that rapid jigging that I keep saying is crazy. But yeah, so he's going to come on.
You got to find his back bay spot. I was just watching his videos from the last 2 months where, man, he goes there every year, and the size of the blues and the bass he gets, and there's never anybody around. I think I have an idea of where that's at in New York, in Long Island, but man, let me tell you, that guy can catch fish.
Yes, he can.
He slays them everywhere. So that's a good trip. I'm glad you got him on.
Yeah, there were a couple times he was going to come on and things happened. One, his house got hit by a hurricane. And he's like, yeah, I can't. I'm like, dude, I totally understand. He's like, I don't even have power. So I was like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it later. And then I ended up with that long layoff. But yeah, so I reached out to him. He got back to me within, a couple minutes, said, yep, let's do in a few weeks. And that few weeks is next Monday. So it'll be fun. It'll be a good conversation. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Chris, thank you again.
Thank you, my friend.
And everyone, it may be hot. It may be brutal out there. There may be a lot of bugs, but make sure over the next few days, I'm going to make sure I do it. Get out there, get on the water, and get some tight lines.